Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, I don't know why this story randomly went across my Facebook feed today, but I went through about like 6 or 7-ish hours worth of podcast, videos, news reports, different things that this guy's dad has actually been on and talked with, including Dr. Phil. And now I'm going to relay to you everything that I learned today about a story that I didn't even know existed until earlier this morning. Now, this story is a few years old, more than a few. This happened back in 2018, and this man literally just disappeared without a trace. I just want to preface this, and like any other story, honestly, that we talk about out here, do not underestimate group mentality and what it's capable of, okay? Especially when it comes to holding secrets. I know that a lot of times people are like, there's no way that all those people can just keep a secret, but you can. You can. There are people that do things, horrible things in groups collectively with a hive mind mentality. Okay, so before we get into all of this, just keep that in mind because there's like somebody's lying somewhere in this story, guys. Terrence Woods was 26 years old whenever he disappeared back in 2018. And what he was actually doing was helping shoot a series called Gold Rush for the Discovery Channel. He was actually a producer and had worked over in London for like The Voice UK, okay? This guy had multiple college degrees. He was well educated, well traveled. He apparently had all of his ish together. And it doesn't sound like he came from a bad family either. His family sounds like they grew up with plenty of money, with the kids, the two boys, him and his little brother, basically getting anything that they needed. And they both seem pretty well off when it comes to education wise. Apparently the little brother works pretty high up position for a bank, a pretty big, well-known bank. So it's not like they came from poverty or didn't have any sort of stability. The whole family seems like they have it together. Now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the timeline. There's not really too much, which is one of the reasons why it's so insane to me. So on September the 30th, back in 2018, Terrence's dad, also Terrence, because Terrence is actually a junior, drops Terrence off at the regional airport right outside of DC, and he flies over to Montana. Now, where he ended up disappearing from is a place in Idaho where these gold mines are, which we'll get to in a second, but he flew to Montana because there was spots over in Missoula, Montana, where the production company, which consisted of him, Terrence, and about 11 other people, were shooting portions of it in Montana before then going over to Idaho. That was his intentional itinerary anyway, but there's a lot of weird stuff with that, and we'll get to all that in a minute. So he gets dropped off again by his dad on 9/30, September the 30th. Later on that exact same day, he tells his dad that he is now met up with the rest of the crew in Montana. Now, his dad doesn't hear from him again until October the 4th. And he said that whenever his son was on location doing things like this, there was times where he would go days without hearing from his son, so it wasn't abnormal, nothing to worry about. But he told him on the 4th of October that he'd finally gotten to Idaho, and the intention was for him to be there for the next few weeks. But instead, the next day on the 5th, his dad ended up getting a message from him telling him that he was actually going to be coming home early in just 5 days on October the 10th. And honestly, this was probably sort of like exciting for the family to hear because Terrence's birthday was just going to be 2 weeks later on the 24th of October. So he was technically going to be home for his birthday. And it sounds like previous to this, that wasn't going to be the case. But that was the last message that his dad got from him. Literally just saying, hey, I'm going to be coming home a few days early. I'll be home on the 10th, something like that. Here's the messages. According to his dad, he figured he was just going to hear from Terrence later so Terrence could tell him why he was going to be coming home early. But instead, he didn't hear from him again the rest of the day and actually didn't hear anything at all about whatever ended up happening to Terrence until the next morning after 7 a.m. on the 6th. Now, what the dad was told, what Terrence's father was told, is that his son said he needed to go pee in the woods, I guess, walked off, and then all of a sudden it was noticed that he dropped his like walkie-talkie or his radio that he had for the set spot they were shooting at, and he literally took off down what they call a cliff. But a cliff is like you going down a cliff. This was more like, according to the way that it's been described, a 70-degree angle cliff, and the way that it was described was that he was running down it like a hare. Basically, running so fast, it looked like he was hopping down the cliff like a rabbit. Terrence's dad finds this extremely odd because Terrence apparently would have to buy expensive multi-$100 padding for his shoes because he was flat-footed. He also wasn't a very athletic kid either, so him being able to just sprint down there in the middle of the afternoon in a location that he's never been before, where it's a bunch of brush and a bunch of things that you could easily trip on, didn't make any sense. And what made even less sense is the fact that in the search for Terrence, they had heat-seeking technology out there, dogs, all kinds of things, and there was no scent of him picked up. No blood scent, no scent of the direction that he apparently ran down, nothing that found his heat signature, nothing. And this is going on in October, so it's starting to get cold. They figured heat signature would help them find him, but it did nothing. And apparently the dogs were given scent to match, and they didn't find anything. What I learned from listening to all these things is that the police department is being really sketchy when it comes to what happened to Terrence. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense because this wasn't like a group of local people. They weren't even from there. As a matter of fact, it's almost as if this small town has a really big disdain for outsiders. I'll just put it that way. And another really odd thing is that all of the credentials that Terrence had with what he has been doing, for his adult life, working with the production companies and filming and things like this, the one person that actually fed a bunch of this stuff to Terrence's dad kept trying to make Terrence look bad. He would say things to Terrence's dad like, well, he came highly recommended until I talked to him. And then, all of that went out the window. And then he would make comments about how, well, we told him to go and get this certain type of fruit and he couldn't even get fruit right. And I'm just like, what does that actually have to do with filming anything? So I don't know if he was there being like the go get my coffee guy, but that seems like way below the level of experience that he has in this field. Now, the wilder part is that apparently he was having some behavioral health, mental health issues earlier on in the day.
He had this mental breakdown and you all detained him, not restrained, but detained. And now after he allegedly got himself together, now you still allow him to go to work. Now he's out there and he's acting strange. You say, get this battery, Terrence. They said he didn't know what battery to get. Get this shirt, Terrence. He didn't know what shirt to get. And finally, he tried to grab a drone out the sky. But now one time did you say, we immediately called for medical assistance. We immediately put him back in the truck, the van, the Jeep, and took him back to the hotel. Not once was that said.
But that's just according to this Simon G guy that his parents have spoken with. Apparently, they've asked several times to talk to the other 11 crew members or staff members of this shoot about what actually happened, who actually saw what, and get it from them directly instead of this like third-party messenger that this Simon guy seems to be. The company has offered to get together with the family, but it's just like the heads of the company and the family. It's not the people that were on scene in the family. It's not the people that were actually there and saw what happened and the family. They're not being allowed to talk to those people for some reason. And one of the things that the sheriff's department was told was that apparently Terrence was telling somebody on the set named Cherie that he was having issues with his family, but there's no proof that there was any actual issues. But this isn't just like rumor stuff. This is stuff that the dad was actually told. And these are things that he has come out and said himself on podcast and YouTube channels, radio shows, etc. But the way that he was being told stuff was that Terrence was telling people that he had issues with his family, that him and his dad fought all the time, that he didn't get along with his little brother, that there was all kinds of issues, and that he wanted to leave. Well, apparently he had told the people on set that there was some medical stuff going on with his mom in order for them to basically approve him leaving. But also, according to his father, he was hesitant about going to begin with. It's crazy how that happens. It's crazy how we have two cases now that we're talking about on this channel where somebody that ended up being a victim felt hella hesitant about the direction that they were about to be taking that ultimately led to their death. Super insane. But he was apparently telling somebody that exact day all of these things. On top of that, the sheriff, well, I'm just going to go ahead and let you hear this.
The story we got originally, how many words you want this? He walked along the edge of the road. He passed one of the company managers who was sitting in a Suburban doing some paperwork. And then he just took off down the side of the mountain. He didn't tell anybody he was going to do it. He just took off down the side of the mountain.
So not only are they making it sound as if he had some sort of mental breakdown, that they had to restrain him at some point because he was losing it, he was reaching up and trying to grab drones that could have injured him, all kinds of things that were going on top of all of these things that he was apparently saying about problems with his family, on top of him apparently claiming that something was going on with his mom in order to be able to get out of there to begin with. All of it was just insanity. None of it made any sense, and there was nothing to back up any of it either. Now, apparently, whenever Terrence ran off down this cliff, a few of them apparently chased after him. And I say apparently because, again, the heat-seeking technology didn't find him, and the scent-matching dogs did not find his scent, nor did they find any blood. And that's just extremely strange because apparently the few crew members that did chase down that cliff after him came back bloody and beat up just from nature, beating the crap out of them as they were running through all of the trees and the brush and the things. So if they came back like that, how was there no blood scent or no anything of this guy who apparently saw something in the woods and dropped his radio and just jetted for no apparent reason? From everything that I've listened to, Terrence's dad doesn't seem too convinced he even made it to Idaho. There's no dirty clothes for all the days that he was apparently in Montana. Everything in his suitcase was clean, folded, except for those weird muddy shoes that were in a bag. There's no proof of any prior behavioral health or mental health history. His dad claims that a couple of people have come out claiming that there were maybe some medicines or something involved somewhere, but there's no proof of that either, according to his father. There's also a little bit of a discrepancy on whenever he was actually reported missing, at least by everything that I've listened to. Multiple podcasts and YouTube channels are claiming that it was around 5:30 on the 5th, but whenever I saw the transcript come through for the 911 call and the person who actually reported the emotional and mental distress and the anxiety attack and everything like that, it claims that it was at 6:41 p.m. There's a big difference between 5:30 and 6:41 when it comes to a missing persons case. Now, I found a channel that posted an update about 3 months ago claiming that about a week prior to this posting, they just got the coordinates for where Terrence's phone last pinged. Where, the location, those things, they're not being talked about. But it's important because Terrence's dad, again, doesn't really believe that he ever made it to Idaho. He never actually heard from his son on the phone with his voice. Everything was a text message. And then there was something posted on Instagram. But the photo that was posted on Instagram and the photos that his dad had actually gotten from him, when his dad was going through his camera, he noticed that those photos were dug way down deep into the photo files and not some of the very first ones that popped up. And if they were some of the ones that he took right before he went missing, they would have been in the very front of the photo file. So the way that Terrence's stuff came back to him didn't make sense either. On top of that, the sheriff's department didn't bother pulling any phone records. They didn't check his laptop. There's a lot of stuff that just completely went unlooked at here. And on top of that, to make this situation even worse, Terrence's dad goes on to tell stories of 2 PIs that basically bamboozled him out of money. Lied to him for money, was charging him $600 just to make phone calls. This other one claimed that he had proof that his son was actually at a hotel in Montana, but then wouldn't give him the information unless he paid him all this money and basically just lied to him. I hear stories like this all the time of PIs that come into these cases and they just lie to these families and take money from them in the worst and most vulnerable time of their lives. It's completely disgusting. But Terrence went from being this super responsible, super caring, again, well-educated, well-traveled TV producer that had literally worked on shows that are very, very extremely popular here on TV, including this Gold Rush one, to all of a sudden he couldn't grab the right battery. He wasn't listening to instructions. He was having mental breakdowns, having panic attacks, having to be restrained. And then all of a sudden he just runs down a cliff and disappears. But there's no biological proof that he did that. None. The dogs found absolutely nothing. There was another disappearance pretty much at the exact same time. She was never found either. Her dog was, but she never was.
Around this same time, and 28 miles to the northeast, 76-year-old Connie Johnson disappeared from Fog Mountain. Connie was a former school teacher, and retired United States Forest Service ranger. She was working as a cook at a wilderness camp for hunters on Fog Mountain. This was the same area she had worked for years. She had been a guide in the area. The last time she was seen was October 2nd. October 3rd was the last time anyone heard from Connie, as she had radio contact with the group. But they reportedly could not understand what she was saying. Connie and her dog Ace were gone. On October 23rd, however, Ace showed up at the Moose Creek Ranger Station, located about 14 miles away from the hunting camp where both had gone missing. The dog was found to be in good condition and, quote, not hungry or struggling in any way, and Connie was never found.
Now, as that stated, she probably did disappear 2 days or so before this, but it was reported on the exact same day, and just the fact that neither one of them were found is really weird. And for those of you that have been here for a while, you probably remember the Shanquella Robinson case, how a group of Americans, including Shanquella, went over to Mexico on vacation, and in less than 24 hours, she was pronounced dead. They stole money from her, went back to the airport hotel, and got on a flight and came back to the States before anyone over in Mexico could even blink an eye, basically, and just left her dead body in the villa. Our government, even though they've been begged by the family, is refusing to do anything, even though Mexico has an arrest warrant ready to go. Well, this all happened here in Idaho, and if something did go down, who's going to actually punish these people? They're all British nationals that got sent out of the country before anything could even get started. And even though the Idaho County Sheriff's Department is not currently searching for Terrence or doing anything, honestly, whatsoever when it comes to his case, they're refusing to close it. The family, especially Terrence's father, has asked them to close this case for a while now so that they can get all of the files, and they're refusing to. And they're refusing giving the family all of the information that's actually available in the case file itself. Well, if you're not going to search, if you're not going to do anything, close it like the family's asking so they can go on and do whatever they need to do. You're just holding this open for what? Let the family do what they need to do to find their son. One thing I do find extremely odd is that these people, this production crew, they apparently film in remote places all of the time, okay? Because they're going into like deep wooded areas and literally filming old abandoned mineral mines, gold, silver mines, things like that. But none of them had an actual phone with them. Whenever Terrence ran down the cliff and they went trying to find him, they ended up going to a guy's house that lived in the woods. He apparently was a retired ATF agent. And instead of them like getting his phone and calling 911 themselves, the guy called 911 and really didn't relay the true situation to the police the way that he should have. But it's also really strange that he's the one who took over the 911 call. Like, I get you've got strangers in your house, but you have no clue what the hell is actually happening. So why don't you just hand the phone over to the people that are actually involved in the situation? That whole like misconstruing of the story really didn't help the situation either. But I go back to, why did they have to go find somebody's house in the middle of the woods to use a phone? Why are you a 12-person crew, including Terrence, and none of y'all have satellite phones, knowing that y'all are out in the middle of nowhere? You had to go track down a house in the middle of the woods? That doesn't really seem right. I don't really know what to think about this case. I almost feel like he never made it out of Montana. Because you cannot, I'm telling you right now, you cannot put aside what group mentality will do and how deep they'll do it because they've got support of other people like them around them. Peer pressure is a thing. Like that whole sentiment whenever you're a teenager, it goes into everything. If you are around a group of people and there's certain people in that group that are starting to do horrible, bad things, you're going to be emboldened to be able to try and attempt those exact same things because you've got the support around you. There's no shame about it. They're all in on it. They all want to do the same thing that your nasty old brain is telling you to do. You can't just discount what group mentality, mob mentality will do. There's a big possibility that that entire group of people knows exactly what happened. Maybe we need to look into some of those cases too, because there's lots of them like that. And honestly, it's because the dogs didn't find anything. There was no trail to find. There was no blood drops that they ended up scenting out. There was no matches to his scent. There was nothing. So the other people that chased after him down this cliff apparently came back beat up from all of the brush. But this guy didn't get scratched up one. the whole time that he was sprinting down this damn cliff like a bunny, so fast that it basically looked like he was hopping down the thing like a hare. But let me know what you guys think. This case sort of reminds me of Daniel Robinson. I haven't talked about this case on this channel, but I watch everything that his father does. He's tried to run in politics so that he can get his son's information out there more. He's constantly at Comic-Con. He goes live all the time on his YouTube channel, and he just doesn't stop. We need to talk about Daniel Robinson's case here soon on this channel. But I saw this one again. It ran across my Facebook feed, and I have just been immersed in what in the hell is going on here for the past 6 or 7 hours. Right now, it's January 9th of 2025. I don't know exactly what day I'll get this posted, but it'll be here soon. Let me know what you guys think about this insane story down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you were not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that your notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.